Hi, it's Wednesday. That means it's time for another video edition of Widower Wednesday. I'm Abel Keogh, author of Dating a Widower, and today we're going to discuss what you should do when a widower breaks up with you. I've been doing I've been guiding women in relationships with widowers for well over a decade now, and unfortunately, I'd say most relationships with a widower come to an end. They don't work out, and if you want a percentage, I'd say it's probably somewhere in the range of 60 to 70% of relationships with widowers don't work out. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Not all relationships are meant to be, and we'll be discussing that today. But oftentimes, when it doesn't work out, I get a lot of questions from the women who were dating widowers, wondering why it didn't work out. And really, what it comes down to is they especially have questions if the widower ends things. Usually, if they're ending things, there's reasons for it. They've been putting up with, whatever pictures on the wall, him not being able to move on and start a new chapter, or, I don't know, posting on Facebook about the latest wife. There's usually when a woman ends things, she understands why that's happening, and honestly, pretty much every time she has a good reason for anything. The widower is not willing to. Really, what it boils down to is the widower is not willing to make her number one in his life, and that's pretty much the reason why women end things most of the time. But with widowers and with men, it's a little bit different. So I'm going to set up two scenarios for you where I can talk about how widowers end relationships and what the reaction is afterwards, and then we're going to talk about how you should handle these breakups, because I found that a lot of times women, they just think that the widower's grieving, and, maybe if he comes back, he'll stop grieving or something like that. And generally, that's not the case. So we'll discuss what you can do in order to save yourself from future heartache. So let me set up the first scenario for you. You've been dating a widower. Again, it could be for a month, it could be for a year, and suddenly things come crashing to an end. The widower ends things. He says, "Hey, I'm done. We're not doing this anymore." And then you find out maybe a few days later, a few weeks later, that he's dating someone else, and he's just out there, in the dating world again. And I mean, let's be honest, this can be a heartbreaking experience because you've invested time, you've invested emotions into this relationship, and the widower is out there just acting like, hey, all's good in the world. And so I often get questions from women in this situation asking if they should wait around or if the widower is going to change his mind. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. If the widower's out there dating again, he's not coming back. And if he is coming back, he's going to want sex or something like that. He's not coming back because he wants you. If he's out there dating again, he's moved on. And I know that's kind of hard to understand, but the way men think and the way men operate is that once they've pretty much ended a relationship and they're out dating again, they're not thinking about the past and that relationship and what could have worked out. They don't approach the subject the same way that women do. And he ended the relationship. There could be 100 reasons why he ended it, but really what it boils down to is he felt he was in the relationship for the wrong reasons, or something wasn't clicking, and he's out dating again. And it's kind of a blunt and tough way to look at it, but men have a way of just kind of compartmentalizing and moving on. I'm not proud of this, but if you've read Room for Two or some of my dating guides, you'll know that I was in, the first serious relationship I was in after I was widowed. I abruptly ended it and, started dating a marathon girl. In that relationship, just to give you some background on that, we had started dating, or it started out as a long distance relationship. We started pretty much talking on the phone like once a week, and then it got more frequent. Pretty soon it was 2 or 3 times a week. And then pretty much we were talking every night, and then kind of we became a couple. And while I was dating this woman, I'd fly down to Phoenix, she'd fly up to Salt Lake. While I was dating her and talking with her, I'll be honest, I never felt good about the relationship. And I mean that in terms of the relationship never felt right. I liked her and she was a good person, but something in the relationship didn't feel right to me. And it wasn't until later that I realized it's because I was in the relationship for the wrong reason. But at the time, it's like, hey, I got someone to talk to, I got someone to do this, but I was totally in the relationship because, I needed someone to fill the hole in my heart. And my gut was telling me that. And then, I met Marathon Girl and realized that when I was with Marathon Girl, I didn't feel that way. And, one day I called up this other girl I was dating and I just said, hey, I'm dating someone else and it's over. And, understandably, she was heartbroken. She was very distraught. Can't say I'm proud of the way that I handled everything, and that I got into a relationship that I couldn't have. But once I ended things, and I was focused on Marathon Girl, I'll be honest, I really wasn't thinking about this other woman and what she was going through or anything like that. I actually had a mutual friend of the two of us reached out a few weeks afterwards, kind of feeling me out, saying, well, what's going on? I was like, well, I don't know what you mean, what's going on? I've ended things, I'm moving on. And she kind of said that, that this girl that I had dumped was just kind of waiting there thinking that I'd come crawling back. And I was like, you got to tell her I'm not coming back. I've ended things. It's gone. I guess the good ending to the story is she was able to meet someone about a year later and is married and is happy and has kids now. And we've kind of smoothed over we aren't in contact, but, I think the bad feelings that we once had towards each other are gone. But you have to understand how men think. If they're out there dating again, you've just got to. They're not thinking about you. They're not wondering what you are, what you're doing, and you've got to stop beating yourself up over this. You can't sit there in this relationship, and you can't sit there in this breakup, I guess, and be overthinking things and have it, play and stop playing mind games with yourself. It's just anything like that is just going to make it worse. And I know you may not understand why he broke up. You may want a reason and an explanation. And to be honest, I don't know if the widower can even do that, if he can give you an explanation. Because, if this other girl was to ask me why I dumped her and dated Marathon Girl, I said, well, the relationship didn't feel right. Well, what does that mean? Well, it wasn't until later I could maybe explain what that meant. But in the weeks and months afterwards, I couldn't have told you what that meant. So if he's out there dating again, the best thing you can do is forgive and forget and move on with your life. The second thing that generally happens when a widower ends things is that at some point he comes crawling back. And I'd say in both these cases, I'd say half the time the widower breaks up and he's off dating and doing something else. And the other half of the time he breaks up and maybe a week later, sometimes even a few days later, he might text or call back and say, oh, we should get back together. And so I get questions from women asking, well, should I get back together with him? What does this mean? And my general advice is don't get back together with him. He broke up for the same reasons that the other guy did who's out there dating again, is that something's not right in the relationship, or it could be that he's not ready for a relationship at this time. He's still grieving, he's still doing that, but generally the reason widowers come back is because they're lonely. And it's not just the loneliness of I'm single. It's the same loneliness that got them dating again, is that with men, there's a big hole in their heart. When they lose their wife, there's this huge gap, this huge cavern in their heart, and they want to fill it. And that's why they start dating so fast again after they lose a wife. And so, they get into a relationship, again, maybe with good intentions, but it's not the right relationship for them. And they end it, and they go back to their widowed life, so to speak, and they're alone, or probably not a lot of people in it, and they realize this life kind of sucks. And you know what? It does suck. And they say, well, I can just go back and I can be with so-and-so again. And so, they'll try to fill you out and say, hey, I'm sorry, whatever, let's get back together. But 95% of the time, the reason that they're doing that is because they're looking for companionship, not a relationship. They want someone to be there and someone they can talk to, maybe someone to help out with the kids if they have kids at home. Want the occasional sex or whatever it is that he's looking for to help him fill that void. He's not interested in a relationship with you. Okay, it's just not. And some people say, well, if I give him 6 months to grieve, will he be back? And don't put yourself in that trap, because it takes. If he was ready, if you were the right person for him, he'd figure something out and he'd figure out a way to make it work. That's just the way it is. I'm sitting here, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this, But with Marathon Girl, I just knew it was right. I knew she was the right person, and I figured out a way to get over my grief. I figured out a way to do what I needed to do to open my heart with her and start a new chapter. It wasn't like that with the first girl that I was in a serious relationship with. I used my grief as a crutch and as an excuse for all kinds of things. It was really kind of crappy behavior. I'm kind of, looking back at it, I'm like, I'm ashamed that I did it. I wish I would have had a video like this explaining to me what was going on in my mind. It's not a good idea to get back with someone, because if he was really ready to move on with you, he'd figure out a way to do it. He'd figure out a way to show you through his actions that he loves you. And when he comes crawling back to you a week or so later, honestly, emotionally, nothing's changed. He's just realized that life without someone in it sucks. And he's not really concerned at this point, is this a long-term relationship? He's just looking to temporarily end the heartache and to end the emptiness inside of him. Another thing that I hear is that he'll come back and say, well, we can just be friends. Okay, this is the oldest freaking trick in the book. Don't fall for this. Especially if you've had a romantic relationship before. It's impossible to just be friends. I'm sorry, but it is hard truth. I know that you can see movies where that works out or whatever, but it's impossible to be friends. And if he's using the let's just be friends line, what he's hoping is that he can get enough companionship out of the relationship that maybe he can get some romantic, some off and on romantic stuff too. Don't fall for it. Again, if he's ready to move on, you'll know he's ready to move on by his actions. You won't have to sit there and say, oh, I'm coming back. I'm sorry. Let's be friends. So no matter how the widower ends it, whether he's, just broke things off and is dating again and has cut off contact, or whether he comes crawling back to you, looking for a second chance, the best thing that you can do for yourself in these things is just to stand up for yourself and say no. Say, you know what, you had your chance, it didn't work out. I'm sorry it didn't work out, but I'm not letting you come back in my life. I'm going to move on with my life, and that's something you need to do as well. And I think you can leave it at that. You've got to understand that having what will resonate with men and widowers. If they see you getting all emotional, if they see you doing, if they sense any kind of weakness, and they're just looking to get back into some kind of companionship relationship, they will exploit that weakness the best that they can. But if you just stand up for yourself and say, hey, you know what, you had your chance. Sorry, it's over. That will resonate more with the widower than any tears or anything else. If he knows you're serious and done, that'll force him to really take an accounting maybe of how he treated you and stuff like that. Basically, you need to do what's best for you and not what's best for a widower. You can't do anything to heal a widower. That's something that the widower has to do by himself. You can be a reason that he goes out there and does it, but there's nothing you can say, there's nothing you can do that's going to heal his heart. It's something he has to do. And so don't get back with the widower. Stand up for you. Do what's best for you. And what's best for you can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but it should not involve the widower in your life. The best thing you can do is move on and forget about them. And if you're looking to date, or you're looking, for a serious relationship, find someone that's going to treat you the way you want to be treated. Find someone that's going to treat you like a queen and put you on a pedestal. Find someone that's going to slay dragons for you and walk 1,000 miles barefoot over shards of glass or swim across the ocean. I'd do any of that for Marathon Girl. I would have done it when we're dating, and I do it now. I would do anything for her. Okay, and she doesn't have to put on tears or don't you love me kind of thing. It's like she knows that I love her because I will sacrifice and I will do what it takes. And if a widower is serious and ready about a relationship, he won't be breaking up with you and dating other people. He won't come crawling back to you. He'll put you first, and you'll know that you're first. And it may not be smooth and 100% perfect all the time, but you'll know when he's ready. So don't waste your time with a widower if he's ending things. He may not be able to explain why he's ended them, but he's ended them for a reason. And the best thing you can do is take a step back, look at the situation, and move on. That's the best thing you can do for you. It's also the best thing you can do for him. Thanks for watching. I'm Abel Keogh, author of Dating a Widower, and we'll be back next week with more videos. Don't forget to comment below if you have any questions, or to also subscribe so you can know when I put new Widower Wednesday videos out. Thank you.